Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to be breaking down a deeply universal, honestly kind of frustrating human experience. We're looking at why we sometimes lose our perceived value in relationships, and much more importantly, the timeless principles you can use to actually get that respect back.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever just wondered why your presence suddenly lost its value to someone? You know, things are going great, and then out of nowhere, you're getting one-word answers. It is such a painful, isolating feeling. You're just left sitting there wondering, what exactly did I do wrong to make them pull away? Well, today, we're going to figure out exactly what's going on.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1. Why do people actually ignore us? First things first, it's time to shift the blame away from your perceived mistakes. Actually, scratch that. It's time to completely let go of the idea that you messed up, and instead look at the real root cause of why people start to distance themselves. The harsh reality here? It's not your mistakes causing the distance, it is your constant availability. Look, the world doesn't just run on love, right? It runs on behavioral rules. And the absolute most brutal rule of all is that constant, unconditional availability breeds ordinariness. When you're just always there, with absolutely no boundaries, you become ordinary. And sadly, what becomes ordinary slowly loses its respect. Moving right along to Section 2, the psychological trap of availability.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core of the problem. We desperately need a paradigm shift here, guys. We tend to think being constantly available proves our loyalty, right? But making yourself a habit without any boundaries actually actively damages your perceived value. Think about the everyday sun. We literally take it for granted. Well, unless you live in Seattle, of course. But the first rays of sun after days and days of heavy rain, that is celebrated. It's deeply appreciated. And human attention and respect work exactly the same way.
We all remember this from childhood, too. Think about the toy that's always just sitting right there in the middle of the floor. It gets completely ignored, right? But the hidden toy? The one you haven't seen in months because it fell behind the couch? Suddenly, it is the most exciting, shiny new thing in the world. When you are an unconditionally available fixture in someone's life, you lose that initial attraction. The human brain, for better or worse, simply stops valuing what it doesn't have to work for.
Now, I really want you to hear this quote. The relationship that survives only because you constantly bow down is not a relationship, it's a habit. Wow, that is a really tough pill to swallow, isn't it? But it's absolutely crucial to understand. Habits do not generate respect. They only teach people how to use you. If a connection only survives because you're the one always compromising, you are quite literally just training them to expect your submission.
So how do we fix this? That brings us to Section 3, the key to Stoic philosophy.
We so often frame Stoicism as this dusty, ancient history kind of thing, but it's actually a highly practical tool for modern mental peace. It is not about turning your heart to stone or, becoming some emotionless robot. It is simply refusing to let others own your mental peace. Think about it. If your happiness depends entirely on someone else's late text replies or their shifting moods, you basically become a slave from the inside out. Your self-respect just becomes completely dependent on their state of mind, and we definitely don't want that.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4. Create your boundaries.
This right here is where we establish the emotional and physical limits that prevent others from exploiting our energy. When you get ignored, two very different voices speak up in your head. The reactive voice is the loud one. It begs for answers, it over-explains, it desperately tries to prove your worth. But then there's the stoic voice. That voice stays entirely calm and just lets time reveal the truth. You need to actively, purposefully ignore that reactive voice that's begging for attention and fully embrace the stoic voice that just patiently waits.
Think about it this way. The constantly roaring lion, he's actually living in fear. He feels this desperate need to constantly announce himself just to prove his strength. But the silently powerful lion is entirely secure in his existence. He doesn't need to make a scene. People who constantly over-explain their actions are kind of like that roaring lion. They're living in fear of being forgotten. True power simply doesn't need to shout.
So the crucial point here boils down to 3 unbreakable Stoic rules. Number 1, protect your boundaries. Number 2, stop over-explaining yourself. And number 3, focus on your own character over outside validation. Just remember, people are only going to take exactly as much as you permit them to. If you're always available, you are literally handing them a permission slip to treat you as an afterthought.
And a true Stoic trusts time way more than empty words. Why? Because time doesn't actually change people, it reveals them. It's like a filter. It strips away all the fake behavior, it exposes selfish motives, and it shows you who genuinely stands by you when things get hard. You don't ever have to force anything. Just let time do its thing and reveal who genuinely values your presence, no conditions attached.
Which leads us to our final part today, Section 5, the power of silence and character. Your internal stability is for sure your absolute greatest weapon against anyone who tries to take you lightly. And listen, silence is not a weakness. It is a bold declaration of your mental peace. Stepping back and just refusing to argue is a sign of immense, unshakable confidence and internal balance. It sends a clear message to the other person that your peace of mind is worth way more than jumping into some meaningless conflict.
Here's another really profound thought for you. The biggest loss is not someone leaving you. It is when you walk away from yourself. Changing your core identity, dropping your good habits, abandoning your dreams just to be accepted by someone else, that is the ultimate tragedy. Holding on to someone at the cost of your own self is never, ever a victory.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that the goal isn't petty revenge. You're not playing mind games trying to force someone to miss you. The real goal? Making yourself undeniable. It's a real game changer. You upgrade your own character so much that you are no longer just an option on someone's menu. You become so entirely focused on your own growth that your value just speaks for itself.
So let's make a promise to ourselves today. I want you to drop a comment below right now saying, "I choose myself," and really commit to your own self-respect. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this one question to chew on. If you stopped reaching out today, who would still be standing beside you tomorrow? Think about it. I'll see you in our next explainers.